Welcome to Bear Necessities, the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, plenty of other places, and we're sponsored by the Bears Vice Presidents and York's Tim. Now, this episode is something of a special one as we once again dedicate a whole show to getting to know one of the club's volunteers. This time, our guest is the club's match reporter, Mike Hyde. If you've ever read anything on the club website, then you'll have seen his words in action. Now, I recently sat down with Mike for a chat, and that's what you're about to listen to. We talk about how Mike first fell for rugby league, how he carried on his passion for the sport when he moved to the Midlands, and how a dented car bonnet led to a wonderful relationship with our Bears. So without further ado, here's Mike.
Hello there, I'm Mike Hyde. I work with Coventry Bears, doing the media reports, basically stuff that goes in the press, goes on the website, online media, etc. Basically, I write stuff.
Yeah. Well, Mike, welcome to Bear Necessities. It's great to sit down and have a chat with you. I guess to start, you sort of explained your role with the club there. So how did you get involved with the Bears? When did you get involved and how did it all come about?
Yeah, I must admit, I had nothing to do with the Bears in the first year that they played in the league. I just kept an eye on them.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Second year, I sort of sneaked along a couple of times. My friend from work, we said, yeah, we must go. We both work in Birmingham, so I must go along to the game. So I went along to a couple of games. I think it must be the third or fourth game I went to. I parked my car in the car park. And it was one of those games where the Bears had one of their heavier defeats, shall we say, and there were lots of conversions of tries. One of those conversions hit the bonnet of my car, did 70 quid worth of damage.
Right.
At which point I was very unhappy, shall we say, and not particularly dispossessed towards the Bears at all. But I got in touch with them.
Yeah.
I managed to get it sorted, guy to fix it. And Alan, the boss of the Bears, said, look, sorry about this, Mike, it does happen. Have some tickets, come along, next game free. I thought, this is nice, I'm being treated well. He said, introduce yourself. I did introduce myself, and we just got talking.
Yeah.
So really, it was literally by accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your attraction to rugby league? Are you from a rugby league town originally, or?
Yeah, I'm from Doncaster, which is not quite the heart of rugby league. In the days I watched it, that was like the southernmost bit of rugby league, like 12 miles south of the M62, 12 miles from Featherstone, 17 miles from Wakefield.
Yeah.
And I wasn't brought up with league at all. I went to grammar school, so had to play union.
Yeah.
Loved football because I lived literally under the shadow of Donny Rovers football ground. Yeah. So football was an influence. Rugby union I didn't like, to be honest, that much. And then one day, me and my mate said, right, let's go and see the Dons, which was a perverse thing to do because they were absolutely awful. So we walked to the other side of town, and that was a bit traumatic. It was over this big railway bridge into this part of town, which was a bit different to the rest of the town. All these little houses, and culturally it just felt different. Basically, it was a pit village tagged onto Doncaster. Bentley it was called, and that was where Tattersfield was. Stood there on the terraces and had a cup of tea. I fell in love. I just thought, fantastic, this is the game for me. I started going regularly. My mate never ever went again. He didn't even speak about it. I was completely hooked from that moment onwards. So basically I started watching the Dons when frankly they were rubbish. We're going back now to the late 1970s. And one of my little personal claims to fame in the world of rugby league, arguably the best rugby league documentary ever, if not the best sports documentary ever, was called Another Bloody Sunday, about the Dons and defeat after defeat after defeat. And as the camera pans the ground with 100 spectators, I'm there, stood on my own. Obviously my friend would never ever go again. I'm there, proud, alone, defiant, on the terraces. It just gets into you. Yeah. It just gets into you. And I know we've talked about this before, but then like a lot of people in the north of England, I went to university, came back, got a job on a newspaper, lost the job, like a lot of people in around that time, the miners' strike, going back quite a few years now. I ended up in the Midlands. I thought I'd never see the game again, but ended up playing it in the Midlands.
So who did you play for?
I played for a team called Redditch Halcyon.
Yeah.
1985, so I'd not actually been down here that long.
Yeah.
And I'd moved, I bought a house in Redditch, and I saw a little advert in the paper. was this guy, lovely guy, who I was to meet, called Dave Pickett. And he put a little advert, it wasn't an advert, an article, anyway, in the paper. And they said, we're thinking about a rugby league team in Redditch. Interested, come along to this pub, I forget now which one it was, on Tuesday night, or ring me, or whatever. So I went along, and there were 4 of us. There's me, a Doncaster lad, a guy from Salford, a guy from Leeds, and a guy from St Helens. Mm-hmm. Basically, if you like, expats, the expat northern community, living in Redditch, which was a new town, had lots of jobs, lots of investment, etc. So there are people from all over the UK there, not just Brummies who'd moved down to Redditch. So that's how I got involved in it.
But that's 4. I mean, that's 9 short of a team. So
in some ways that's a very nice analogy for the team generally. I always felt like we were 9 short, but. To be honest, we grew. I mean, it was several weeks after that we had our first game. I'll probably mention this to some of the guys. Yeah, our first ever training session. We weren't getting just the 4 of us plus the boss. They picked 4 of us. And I got my Don shirt on. My mate had got his St Helens shirt on. We were all really limbering up, really looking the part in the dressing room. Ran out onto the pitch, forwards we just sort of fanned out like that. Fantastic feeling. Then we just realised, oh shit, we haven't got a ball. and that was like a wake-up call that we've got a bit of a way to travel on this. 4 players and no ball. Well, hang on, we need 13 and preferably a ball as well.
Yeah, a ball definitely helps.
Yeah.
So what was the state of Midlands Rugby League like at that point then?
To be honest, it went from being like non-existent to could this possibly happen to really quite exciting. And there was this thing called, sounds like a part of Africa actually, called Maswala, Midland and Southwestern Amateur Rugby League Association. Right. That was like a developmental thing. So basically, all of a sudden, clubs started springing up. It was quite strong, as you probably know, in the university sector. Yeah. So there's a Birmingham Poly, as then was, team. There's a Cov Poly team. There's a Wolverhampton team. Then there's a Birmingham team. Strangely enough, there's a Cheltenham team. That seemed really quite incongruous, Rugby League in Cheltenham. There's a team in Bristol, a team, Hemel Hempstead, of course, who are now a league team themselves, sort of thing. And obviously, Cheltenham did become league and then sort of dropped out. So those days we had about 10, 12, occasionally a team would come along and then drop, and then another one would come along. But it was quite healthy. I mean, it was always a struggle. It was never easy. It was never ever easy, and as you say, that just getting 13 players. Yeah. Sometimes it was easy, but if you imagine what it's like, you want 13 guys. We're not professionals. In fact, we're not even amateurs. We actually had to pay subscriptions, so we had to pay for the dubious pleasure of often getting thrashed every week. Yeah. And like one of our away games was Plymouth. Like amateur sportsmen chipping in money for petrol to go and play their sport in Plymouth. 5 hours on the motorway, heavy thrashing, 5 hours come back. But the real sort of breakthroughs came for me when we started getting what I call natives involved. Guys from the Midlands, guys from Redditch. And the typical story was, I like rugby league. I've always watched the cup final on telly. Me and my dad always watch St Helens when we can. Yeah. Invariably, it was the TV that did it. Yeah. So there was that sort of tick-over awareness. And one by one, these people basically coalesced. So eventually it wasn't just 4 or 5 northern accents you could hear in the dressing room. It was Redditch and Brummies and so on like that. So great days.
So how long did you stay involved with Redditch? How long were you playing for? And did you do stuff with the club after you'd finished playing?
What happened to me was I played for, I think it was about 2.5, 3 seasons or something like that. I mean, when I first joined the club, my intention was not to play. Right. My intention was, I thought my real skill was as a spectator. Yeah. I thought, just go along and watch, fine. But obviously got roped into playing because I was only 27, 28 or something. So I played for 2.5, 3 years. What happened to me was, towards the end, like anybody at any level of this sort of sport, I was getting more and more injuries. Yeah. And I was like breaking bits, ribs. Yeah. Broke something else once, I think. And eventually, I'm actually a very, very lucky guy because the end of my rugby league career, playing career, that is, was against West Midlands Police, would you believe?
Right.
They had a team, and I was tackled rather. It wasn't a foul tackle, you know. The police never do anything like that. No, the police tackled me and managed to break four vertebrae. I broke 4 bones in my back.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I walked off the field. I did walk off the field. Got myself into the bath, you know, the great big bath.
Yeah.
Lied there in the bath. And I was there for 45 minutes because the match was still on. Yeah. And I couldn't get out the bath.
Yeah.
And basically, long story short, stay in hospital. I didn't need doctors to advise me that my playing days were over.
Yeah.
So it was a case of, well, what next? And a bit of a blind alley I went down, actually. And I tried refereeing.
Okay.
Which is why I have utmost respect for referees.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do it. And, you know, I was like refereeing this game. And I realised I was lining up with my own team. and then also, because I'm the sort of guy that I am, and when somebody says, that wasn't the foul you just given, I said, well, yeah, what do you mean it wasn't the foul? I'm talking with these guys and discussing it with them and hearing different viewpoints. In other words, I was not cut out to be a referee. So that ended. And then, to be honest, I got a job which took me even further down south to Swindon, for God's sake.
Right.
And that really severed that connection. So then I had a few fallow years where really living down in Broadway in the Cotswolds I lived, but worked in Swindon. I then had a few years where I would just go back and watch the Dons on occasion. I basically reverted to being a spectator of the Northern game, so I wasn't involved in the local amateur game other than as a player.
So then you come back and you're back at the Bears and everything. I mean, how quickly from your bonnet being damaged and you're coming back for some free matches, how long did it take for you to start actually using your writing skills and helping the club out?
It was within a matter of weeks almost, because my bonnet was damaged. I had a chat with Alan, and then I think Alan or the team put out a little thing, because I always look at the website, so, and I was quite happy to just take over. And I thought, you know, I'll have a season ticket. Yeah, you know, very good value, season ticket. Then there was this thing for season ticket holders. It was like an event, you know, in the club here. And it was about anybody who wants to volunteer. And at that point, I'd taken redundancy, so I got redundancy payment. I was basically, and still am working part-time. No intention of ever working full-time. So I've got a little bit of, if you like, spare capacity. So I said, yeah, I'm interested in volunteering. And then the conversations and said, well, what could you do? And it said, well, could you write a match report? I thought, well, I can write, because I write training courses professionally. I've written a book on marketing. I can write. It's not an issue. But writing press releases, it was my real thing, you know, public relations. What I used to do as a job sort of thing. So writing match reports, it was really quite exciting because I used to work on a newspaper, and to me it was like the most exciting job in the world. Surely had to be the sports report, you know, getting all the gossip from the club and writing this stuff out and hitting the deadlines. I'm a great fan of you don't get them anymore now, but I was a great fan of like the green editions or the pink editions, the sports editions. The speed of journalism that's needed, the quick turnaround, hit those deadlines. And I've always found that a very enticing place to be. So to actually be involved in that as an amateur, if you like, was really nice. But of course, then what sort of happens very quickly after that is you find yourself, as I do, you write for Rugby League Express. So basically, while I'm working as a volunteer for a club, today by 6 o'clock tonight, I'll have to get a report on this match done, email it up to Leeds and what have you. So, and I do get a little bit of beer money, if you like, for doing that. So that was a sort of a transition, and then so the first couple of weeks of doing that was really quite tough. You know, just the speed of having to do things, and then trying to how do you cover an away match, especially one where you're not there. So again, it's talking with people, getting the feel of it, getting the tweets and stuff like that. So you then start to get into a bit of a swing. And one of the strange things though is that when I write a report, I actually don't write a report. I write one then there's a derivative, and then another.
Yeah.
So for today, I'll write a report which is really quite straight, quite factual. What the score is, who scored when, who passed to who scored next, after. Very much straight, neutral.
Yeah.
What I then have to do is when I get home, either tonight or maybe tomorrow morning, I'll do what you might call a more patriotic version for our website.
Yeah.
And I'll do a slightly different version sometimes. And the Coventry Observer, they always pick up on our things.
Yes.
The Coventry Observer will seemingly always publish what we do.
Yeah.
But again, I'm mindful sometimes of the different audiences, because in something like the Coventry Observer, you're reaching out to effectively a non-rugby league audience.
Yeah.
And whereas our own fans are coming from a, sort of say patriotic fan perspective. So that's sometimes the interesting bit, trying to put out different versions of the same thing. And then sometimes I also have to do one, say, for Cumbrian newspapers, like Workington or Whitehaven or Distington, as it was this year, came down. I'll also do a Cumbrian perspective. So you're right.
You've really got to wear a lot of hats then sometimes.
Yeah, so you end up with completely different headlines.
Yeah.
And completely different perspectives. Like for Coventry one, I'll try and pick up on what the mood of the fans was, or a particular foul that we felt went unpunished, or something like that, or the standing ovation at the end, or something. Whereas I wouldn't for the Rugby League Express one.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing it, say, for another town, you have to pretend you're one of their supporters and probably interview their manager after the game and get all the comments and things. So it makes an interesting life.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about the Bears. So when they got the nod to go into League One, what were you thinking then? What was that like, and how have you enjoyed the League One years so far?
I mean, as I say, for the first year, I was still working full time in a very high pressure job, and I just sort of kept watching eye on it. Will this happen? Won't it happen? Oh, bloody hell, they're there. Oh yes, they're bottom. To be honest, and again, this sounds like a very self-effacing comment, but having watched the Doncaster, when they were truly awful and hopeless and going bankrupt and all that sort of stuff, I'm not here, dare I say, for the glamour and the victories. I know that will come possibly one day in 5 years or 10 years, but I'm enjoying being involved at something. It isn't grassroots, it's not amateur, this is properly part of the pro thing, and we've had some great days on the journey. So some have been pretty awful. Yeah. I see a game and I look for the signs of progress. I look for the optimistic signs. I look for that guy, give him a couple of years. Yeah, that play that they did then, that didn't quite work, did it? Yeah. Practice on that. That'll work. And so I this is me as an individual now, rather than the guy who works for the club or writes things. So I enjoy watching the game. The scoreline perhaps matters less to me than it would to other people. Yeah. So and there've been some bad games, but on the other hand, nothing makes victory, whatever the expression is, nothing makes victory taste sweeter than a string of defeats or whatever. So when it finally comes, I'm up there. I'm like so pleased we've won.
And what do you make of the state of the game in the Midlands now? Because we've got the Bears, and the Bears have got this Midlands-centric approach for the squad this year, which feels like it's a step in the right direction. There's the Hurricanes, which are potentially offering a bit of a pathway. There's clubs like the Black Swans have set up a junior club in Pershore and things. Given what you saw it to be like in the mid-'80s compared to now, what do you think for rugby league in the Midlands?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, when I was involved in the 1980s, it was very, if you like, flat, in the sense that there were several clubs. There was nobody any better than us, nobody any worse than us, but we were it. The 6 or 7 Midlands clubs, plus stretching out down the southwest. There was nothing actually to aspire to, and there was nothing where anybody, if you like, come from to us. We were it. It was flat. This sort of pyramid thing, without the hierarchy, can sound as a negative word to some people, but there's a path now. Yeah. So a guy, probably, to be honest, not a guy like me, a guy who was better than me, playing for one of the local clubs, can think, maybe I can have a go at this now. Yeah. It moves things into the realms of the possible. from being just like a sort of a token presence and minority sport that we enjoy just for a bit of a laugh or whatever, it can give real sort of hope, I think, to people. Yeah. So something like, I'd say it's brilliant. I mean, got to give everything 2 or 3 years. 1 or 2 of these initiatives could flop, but then there'll be another one. So give it 2 or 3 years to see how this stabilises. Then when we see the case studies of people moving up, from there to a trial game to a contract or whatever, then we know it's happening.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly the sort of thing you've seen in London with some of the players who've come through.
The people who are here today, like the scholars, but I think the Broncos in particular, there is now a London scene, and if Broncos and scholars disappeared, somebody else would come in. The scene in London is strong enough to keep going there.
Yeah.
So I would hope for the Midlands scene, if you like, to be here in 10, 20 years' time.
So if I had to push you, what would your favourite Bears memory be?
My favourite Bears memory? It's not the time at a certain age where I've got a memory issue, but I'm actually thinking about last week.
Yeah.
And
so which, for the purposes of the recording, we're recording this a week after the Widnes game.
Which week is this going out? So, that, to me, would be just the trip up to Widnes.
Yeah.
And again, that to me felt like something, a little glimpse of the future, a little glimpse of how it could be, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. There's been lots of memories. I think, to be honest, any game they win is a happy memory. There was one game actually when we lost, I think it was Workington, we lost something like 33, 32, or some crazy score like that. We lost by 1 point.
That the game last season?
Yeah. So that was in 2017 season.
Yeah.
That at any level was one of the most totally enthralling games I've ever seen. It's just edge of seat stuff, And I think anybody who watched that game will always be a Bear. Yeah, really good.
And if just as a last question, because it's nearly time for kickoff. If you could have any wish granted for the Bears, say for something to come true in the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think what would you want?
I think the next 3 to 5 years is to see the Bears not, if you like, as an endangered species in any sense whatsoever, because we all read the press about League One's future or whatever, and to be honest, we've seen what's happened to Gloucester.
Yeah,
we've seen what's happened to Oxford. So my aspirations actually are, in about 4 or 5 years' time, attendances 800. And probably in the top 4 or 5 of League One. That's maintaining as steady as we are. If somebody were to win the Euro Millions, that would change everything.
Yeah.
If they were willing to invest. And I've said that I will, but then again, I don't buy tickets, so it ain't going to happen to me. But I think just sort of, I'd like to be able to think, the Bears will always be there. Like I think Doncaster, after all their problems, will always be there now.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't sound very exciting, that, but to me, having seen a few false dawns and seen other clubs fold and various other issues like that, stability, survival, and really good steady growth. With some of those youngsters coming through as well, Swans and stuff like that.
Great. Mike, thanks so much for your time. It's been great.
Pleasure.